started.
You're listening to Sarah Talk. It's political.
You could run a fucking pet rock against Donald Trump, and I would vote for the pet rock.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Critical.
Hang on, let me... I'm gonna change some words here. All right, ready? Adults with religious confusion who truly believe in a higher power that created us and actually cares what we do with our penises and vaginas should be treated with care, compassion, and kindness, but must not be officially affirmed in their confusion, no matter how sincerely held. Fuck you.
And positively LGBT positive.
In many states, you can still be evicted from housing simply for being gay or transgender. Stand and fight with us.
Oh, and occasionally completely absurd.
I don't know if you've ever seen a lightning bug, but he flies around with a flame of light coming out of his behind. The lightning bug got a flame coming out of his butt.
It's a beautiful night tonight. All the sodomites are out.
And now, from Orlando, Florida, your host, Sarah Austin.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sarah Talk. I'm Sarah Austin.
You gonna?
I did, I clicked it. I'm waiting. There it is. See,
okay.
there's a lag.
Well then. Hi, Facebook.
There's a lag on the Facebook video thing, like there's a lag in my life today.
Oh no.
Hey, we've had a day today.
Mm-hmm.
I overdid it outside in the yard.
Yes, you did.
That was the thing. Probably sunburnt.
Probably. God.
Yep.
It's springtime. It's time to plant the garden.
Yeah. But that also means like pulling out stuff out of the garden.
Did you guys ever trim that tree or no?
No.
Okay.
No, are you kidding me?
It's always next weekend.
Right? So my parents are in town from Illinois, and we're trying to maximize the time that we have available
Yeah.
by making lists of things for them to do. Stacy, you have no idea how badly I wanted to start tonight's episode with the Olympic fanfare and just talk nonstop about the USA men's curling team winning gold at the Olympics. So I'm not gonna do it, and you're posting the emojis in the chat. So
maybe this is your spin-off project. You can start a podcast about curling.
yeah, I was gonna start the show Olympic theme, and then welcome to Curling Cast or something like that.
Yeah. No, I will not take part in that. Thank you very much. Stacy says, "Do it.
Do it."
I am. I'm smothering myself in a blanket. I overdid it. My knee is really in a lot of pain, so I have my whole leg wrapped in ice, which is making me cold.
Yeah.
So I'm wrapped in a blanket. Damn.
We all overdid it today. We all did too much.
Way too much. Okay.
And that will be interesting to see how it manifests itself tomorrow, because we're going out to Orlando Solar Bears game.
Yeah.
Taking the kiddo to a hockey game.
I just hope the stairs don't kill me.
No kidding. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, we're going to dive into humanism. Let's take a break from screaming at the void and talk about something that's productive that we can do about things. So we're going to talk about some journeys from belief to non-belief, what fills the void when people do lose that religious community, the language and labels around non-belief, as well as humanist activism and community building. And to help us navigate these topics, we are joined by T. Rogers. She's the founder and executive director of Be Orlando, and she's a Humanist Chaplain, who she volunteers in that capacity at University of Central Florida and the greater Central Florida community as well. T, welcome to SarahTalk.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great.
You didn't spend all day out in the garden getting too hot, did you?
I did not. I spent all day wrestling with technology.
Oh, well, that could also be pretty bad.
That's mentally exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. So let's start with some of your faith journey. Did you grow up in a religious family or a faith community?
I did. I grew up in a Catholic family, so very much ingrained in our family was the traditions of Catholicism and going to church every week, and some of them even liked the smell of incense, if you can imagine that.
Oh, wow.
But I grew out of that very quickly when I was very young, so there was no real revelation story for me. It was just kind of an evolution, if you'll excuse that.
I don't know. That sounds a little bit like my own story. Like, I mean, I grew up in a what I like to call vanilla Protestant denomination, and I didn't really have there wasn't like a moment that changed it all. So in like high school, I had created a Bible study group at our school because I was one of these, freedom of religion warriors that I knew my Constitution and I knew my rights and we were going to do this, and so we did. I was a abysmal brat back in the day. Oh, I thought you were going to say something about back in the day.
My hair's falling out. I gotta fix my...
So I did that for a while, and at that time, I was also, like, I had written a few sermons and, like, spoke in church. And then I moved out on my own, and I started going to, like, I went to various churches, but it kind of all culminated when I went to a Church of God for a girl, of course. And I was doing deep one-on-one Bible studies with one of the pastors at this church. And I can remember thinking it was all bullshit while we were going through it. Like, I can remember, because I had to do stuff like, okay, you're going to read this section and write down all the truths and all the promises. Oh, pour me another drink. And I can remember like thinking, oh, that's bullshit when it was going on. But again, there wasn't like this one moment of, okay, I'm done with this. I left that church and I just kind of never went back to church, and it just wasn't an important thing in my life. And at some point between then and now, like I quit believing, and then that was that. Was that sort of the same idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there was, and I've said this many times, but for most of my younger life, my non-belief was no more important to me than my identity as someone who doesn't ski.
Right.
It's just not something I thought about. So it wasn't part of my reality.
At what point did you start kind of considering non-belief in the perspective of your identity?
I don't know. I mean, it was way after college, and as you go through your older years, you start to see things that are going on, and I was noticing discrimination and noticing times when I was mistreated by others, and also when others were mistreated because of their non-faith. And the more I took notice of that, the more I got involved, and that also has evolved over time.
Right. Now, again, we're pretty critical, especially of faith groups that, practice like shaming and shunning. Again, I came from a kind of vanilla Protestant church, which we didn't really preach that stuff outright. Actually, my grandmother, she would just try to like guilt me to come back to church. Like that was always her thing. She would just say like, I sure wish you'd come back to church. And that was my grandma. Like that was it. There wasn't any, because it wasn't like, because I don't want you to burn for all eternity, or because I think you need moral guidance. It was just, I wish you'd come back. How did your circle, your family and friends, how did everyone around you process that as you were going through kind of the claiming of belief? Well, I mean, we could go back to, when you stopped going to church. Was that a big deal?
No, not really. I don't really remember that having been an issue, but there were also, other issues in our family that were more important. So, I don't know. I know there were certain things like after my divorce, my mother was trying to console me and told me that I should not be so upset because I wasn't really married.
Oh.
Because we didn't get married in the church.
Oh my gosh. That's
so that was one of those moments when I realized there was quite a division between us that I hadn't even realized before.
Wow.
And that was after 7 years of marriage. So.
Wow.
Right. Did you go through kind of that angry atheist phase? I think a lot of people experience similar steps as you come out of faith and deconvert. Again, not all journeys are the same, but did you go through kind of that? There's a similar trajectory that a lot of people go through.
Yeah, I guess I probably did. So I've identified at different points in my life as atheist, anti-theist, evangelical atheist. I went through that phase for quite a while. And then kind of falling back into that atheism and then humanism, because my real focus is how people are impacted and what they're experiencing, and how can we make this world a better and safer place for all people.
Absolutely. Stacy, are you trying to find out? So Stacy asks, I'm curious how your family's reacted to adjusting to you being non-believers. I'm assuming she means us. Becca.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it. Like, my parents quit going to church long ago. I feel like they're the kind of parents that took their kids to church because, you know, that was your best hope for them being good people, you know? Like, I don't know that they fully bought into it, and it wasn't like, we were Sunday Christians. It wasn't a lifestyle. I don't know, but we don't talk about it now. Now, my sister, who's married to a preacher, they're not fond of my active atheism. And the other sister, we don't really talk at all. So there's that. Your mother. We always go back to your mother.
My whole family is not in, like, with the exception of my mother. My dad left, my brother left, I left. I was the first one to leave, and then my brother left, and then my dad left. But my mom, she doesn't like it, but it is what it is. She thinks that she's going to take my kids to the Kingdom Hall. I think that she honestly believes that one day I'm going to actually let her do that. And yeah, that's not going to happen. But she has a hard time with it. But it's one of those, we have kind of a don't ask, don't tell policy, I guess, because I can't have a discussion with her without her getting all bent out of shape. And if I disagree with anything that she believes in, I'm attacking her, whether I come off that way or not. So her persecution complex is extremely oversensitive.
Right. Let's talk. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, is that difficult for you, not being able to talk about your worldview with your mother?
It has been. And I've recently come to the conclusion that that's just the way it's going to be, and I have to, like, separate myself from that. So that's a work in progress that I'm sure is going to take lots of therapy to get through. But and it's not, I don't know, it's not just religion that she, like, you know, she swore that when Sarah transitioned, it was going to end our marriage. And so I know that there's a part of her that wishes that I hadn't stayed. And it's not just the religion that causes tension. So that's probably the easiest thing to deal with, is the difference in religious views, because her go-to is, well, if you want me to respect your beliefs, then you have to respect mine. And so we kind of just have this agree to disagree thing going on. So that's probably actually, if you compare it to all the other issues we have, that's probably the easiest one to deal with.
But it sounds like you're not being able to be your authentic self.
Not with her.
And that's really hurtful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's hurtful because, you know, I want her to be a part of my life, but she's not there. And I don't know that she will be, but she's got too many years of brainwashing that I don't have the capability to undo. So I just have to kind of accept that it is what it is and hope for the best one day.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think there's that storyline kind of parallels the storyline about my transition. One of the things that Becca and I had to decide early on, unfortunately, was that as I was coming out and transitioning, we weren't sure how our family was going to react to that. And so we kind of made a pact early on that, like, look, at the end of the day, our coupling and our children that is our family. And if it comes down to a choice, if I have to choose between, you know, our parents and our siblings and all of that, the choice is obvious. Like, we're going to, you know, do what we need to do for us and for our kids. And so I think when those troubles with the family come up in other aspects too, I think that's something we kind of fall back on.
Yeah. You know, you have to, like, that's as hard as it is. If you're not focused on what's important, what is important is that we're okay. We are raising our children to thrive, and everybody who's outside of that bubble, you know, sorry to sound cold, but if you can't get with us, you can get out of here. We're ride or die, bitch. Sorry.
Okay, so let's bring out the label maker. Humans have this innate drive to inspect and dissect and label everything we see.
Everything.
And this is no different. So let's talk about some of these labels, how we see them, how they kind of interplay. We have terms like agnostic, atheist, skeptic, humanist. Do you want to spend a few minutes talking about some of those different labels and what they mean or convey from your perspective?
Absolutely. So humanism is really becoming one of the most popular non-theistic identity labels that people are using, right? There are many labels that people of non-faith use. Atheist is one, but for many that simply doesn't convey answers to inner life questions. It doesn't answer, for many, how we live, how we find our moral compass, how we find meaning and purpose, how we process grief, loss, and mortality, how we feel connected to something greater than ourselves. And so humanism kind of has those elements as part of it without being theistic or engaged in the supernatural. So humanism is a non-religious worldview that focuses on our empowerment and responsibility to make a positive difference in the world and to lead ethical lives that aspire to the greater good of humanity.
Yeah, I think like one of the common conversations that we have to have with people is that, atheism is the answer to a question. I reject the existence in gods. Like that's all it really tells you about
binary
me.
Question, right?
Yeah, right. Do you or do you not? And so, but once you know that about me, it doesn't tell you much else about me. And so I think like that's where humanism really kind of steps in and says, kind of answers that question where people are, well, if you don't have God, how can you be moral? How can you be a good person if you don't have Jesus? Well, that's to me, that's humanism. Like that's where humanism comes in.
Right.
It's kind of like the Hippocratic Oath, right? First, do no harm. But for me, it's do the least harm while also doing the most good.
Yes. There's a thing called the Humanist Manifesto. Are you familiar with that?
No, I haven't looked into that.
So the Humanist Manifesto originated in 1933, and it's gone through a couple of revisions. The current revision is called Humanism and Its Aspirations. And there are a lot of organizations and individuals that formulate their own definitions for what humanism is, but it always has these common components that you can find there in the Humanist Manifesto. And that's that knowledge is evidence-based, that we live in a natural, secular world, that humans are an integral part of nature, that our values evolved from human need and compassion, that humans are social and find meaning in our relationships, and that fulfillment comes from compassionate action and connection to others.
Yeah, that wraps it up perfectly. Yeah,
Nice little bow there.
Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't know. For me, I kind of claim if I'm labeling myself, there's I guess kind of three broad labels that I claim for myself, and so one of them is atheist, right? That tells you I don't believe in gods. Skeptic, which should hopefully convey how I approach knowledge, how I approach, learning things, and how I want to scientifically view the world to find truths, and then humanist, which to me is more about that action, the how do we take care of each other aspect of it. Let's talk about some language on the other side. There are a couple of terms you sent over, some things, and I thought this was great. There's a couple of terms that you have some issues with. Let's start with faith-based organization.
No, that's not correct, Sarah.
No. All of these groups that we make fun of, the chum bucket salesman and the Creflo Dollar. They all run faith-based organizations,
they
right?
have a corporation, which indicates there's some kind of organization of something.
No, I use the term faith-biased rather than faith-based.
I like that.
So if the organization is bringing their faith bias into their services, especially where the organization accepts donations, volunteers, and clients from the diverse public, they're biased, not based.
Yep. I mean, how many times have we talked about the problem of homelessness in America? And, that even in my work, I run into people who are vagrant, and, it pains me to chase them off my lawn. But at the same time, I realize that there are shelters. You should just go down to the shelter. Often means you have to go, say, I love Jesus before you can have a meal. And that bothers me a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you're someone who is a person of non-faith or of another religion that doesn't believe in the Christian God, and you have to go to one of these shelters to feed your children, you may have to profess faith in a God you don't believe in or in someone else's God in order to feed your hungry children.
Just makes me sick to my stomach, just to even...
Well, and then you have the Alcoholics Anonymous groups that are...
Oh, yeah. Right.
That are, put on by the church, and you're expected to, like, one of the things is pray about your... Well, wait a minute.
Right. Well, and they don't claim to be a religious organization. They just happen to have this wonky step that's like you have to have a higher power. And we're not saying that that's God. I mean, that could be you. It could be nature. It could be anything. But God's pretty good. God's a good one. Choose God. Jeez.
As if he's so good.
Well, there are actually secular alcoholism treatment programs that I've reached out to. That hopefully we'll get some people on the show here and talk about how they do it. Yeah. What about the word interfaith?
Yeah, I mean, interfaith is, people talk about that word like it's a very positive thing, and it's certainly a step up from ecumenical. So ecumenical efforts bring together Christian organizations towards a Christian agenda, and then interfaith goes a step further towards inclusion and includes people of other faiths. But it reinforces this wall between people of faith and people of non-faith, and it excludes people of non-faith from important social and political collaborations, and it reinforces that harmful, ignorant perception that people have to believe in something supernatural in order to be good human beings. So I think the next evolution from ecumenical to interfaith, the next step would be interworldview, because that's an umbrella that catches everyone and respects everyone of all faith and non-faith perspectives.
Yeah, when I think of interfaith, I think of things like prayer breakfasts and even some like invocations before the city council. Be like, how many times have you? Oh, we're having an interfaith prayer breakfast. Okay, great. So you and the Presbyterians and the Baptists and the Methodists have all decided to stop arguing about the few things that you don't agree on and eat bagels together. Like, is that okay?
As long as it's not shellfish.
Right. Jesus. Speaking of invocations, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this, but you gave the first secular invocation to the Florida House of Representatives. What was that like for you?
It was terrifying, Sarah.
Yeah.
But no, it was a wonderful experience, and I'm so grateful to Carlos Guillermo Smith, who is the representative who invited us there to be sponsored by a member of the House, and to the Central Florida Free Thought community for putting that together, because they're kind of the powerhouse that spearheads all of the secular invocations in Central Florida.
We certainly love him. We're big fans of his.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He was on the show when we were early. Yeah, way early in the show. We absolutely love talking to him. So I did what? I'm pouring another drink.
She just pulls a bottle of Coke right out from underneath the table, like it's just there all the time.
The magic
so
hat.
funny.
Yeah, right. There's probably room in there for a fridge. So no, that whole the idea of being terrified, I can completely get with that. So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit back in our emails back and forth. When we went to the Transgender Day of Remembrance this year, this was our first T-Door, and in the organizing Facebook group, one of the organizers said, "Hey, I think we've got everything ready to go. We have everything we need. We've, all the stuff, except the one thing that we really don't have that we need to try to lock in is a preacher or a pastor or some sort of faith leader to do an opening prayer and opening and closing prayer." And like in my older age, I just get gutsier, and so in communities where I would not necessarily always speak up, now I said, like, proverbial, put my hand in the air and said, "How about a humanist, secular, and what can we do a secular invocation? Is that a thing?" And not knowing what kind of response I was going to get back, because these are all people in the trans community who I don't necessarily, like, we're not friends. We don't all hang out. I'm not real close to that group, but here I am, like, poking my nose in. And
funny.
So then nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nobody says anything.
Like one person was like, "Oh, thanks for bringing that up," but it wasn't the person who asked.
Right.
So you kind of got that, "Oh, there's my people."
Right. Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. And you know who you are. And
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I think I prepared something just on the off chance that we would need it.
Yeah.
And then we got there that night, and they were like, "Okay, Sarah, so you're gonna get up and do a." And I was like, "Whoa, hang on, wait a minute! I don't know that I'm ready to do this yet."
I suggested it. I wasn't volunteering to do it.
No, I think I said ahead of time, like, if you need me to, I can write you something, or I can whatever you need. I can.
Speechwriter and deliverer is a. It was good.
They're two different things.
But it was terrifying for me because I felt like I'm not really in the group. Like I'm not part of the in group.
Yes, Dan, it was last year.
What?
T-Door.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's just this past November. And so I didn't really feel like, these are like, I know these people, I'm part of this group. I'm kind of an outsider. A lot of these people have been coming to these events for a long time, and they know each other, and and here I am, this outsider, and not only that, but like, so now I've got to stand up and be like, I don't believe in God, and here's what that means for us as a people, like that we, look around the room and see all of these people in this room. Don't close your eyes, look around. Mm-hmm. That these are the people that are going to carry you when you trip up. These are the people who will be there for you when you need them. And that we are not going to get through this thing without each other. And, just not knowing my crowd, that was terrifying for me. So I totally, especially when, and you go into the House of Representatives, or I know what Florida legislature looks like.
I saw those numbers.
Yeah, Jesus.
I saw all those N's next to them.
Lots of
R's.
R's.
Well, the way they have it set up, is whoever is the majority in the House sits towards the front.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so all of the Republicans are sitting towards the front.
Right in the front row.
Fine. I don't know their perspectives or whether or not they're inclusive of people, but I know when I started, I looked up and I felt like I saw all these angry faces.
Mm.
You were probably a large percentage of correct in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be just downright ridiculous about their own beliefs. We see it.
Oh, totally. Well, and I wasn't going to go on this tangent today because, so we spent an entire hour last week screaming about the Parkland shooting, and I don't want to do that again now. But when we look at the response from our politicians to things like this, let's look at what the Florida legislature has been doing since the shooting. Have we done any meaningful reforms for the safety of our students in schools? Absolutely not. You know what we did do? We said porn's kind of bad, and and we should put "In God We Trust" somewhere on the school property. Are you kidding me?
And oh no, we're not going to even talk about ways to,
Oh no, yeah, we
control
can't even
gun
talk.
problems.
Well, Carlos Guillermo Smith,
his bill, that was his bill, and,
was ignored.
and it wasn't. It was like, this is not what I want you to do. I want to talk about what we could do.
Yeah, and they wouldn't even talk.
And they
about
didn't
it.
even want to talk about it. So yeah, I'm not surprised if you got tons of dirty looks about your
Those are our people. Like that's
that's Florida.
That's sad.
Hopefully not for long.
Florida.
Sorry, what?
I said it's not just Florida.
Right? Oh,
Yeah,
definitely not. Oh, yeah.
Well, look at the White House. That's
Yeah. And we talk about those news stories week in and week out.
I feel the change coming though. So
Oh, yes.
it's so nice to watch those kids
Right,
go
these
after.
kids-
the way they went after Rubio.
And the NRA lady.
And the
Yes. I'm telling you, these kids are starting a political movement, if not a party, like we have never seen before. And this is one to be watching. These kids are amazing. Okay, so we're talking tonight with T. Rogers, Humanist Chaplain, founder and executive director of Be Orlando. I'd like to talk about non-faith activism. If we plot your journey on a timeline from like extreme Catholic, right, to through the skeptical and questioning phases to atheist, and ultimately where you are today, if we look at a point on the timeline where T becomes an atheist, that didn't necessarily immediately propel you into activism, right? That's something you've grown into over time?
Oh, yeah. No, I knew that I was an atheist and identified as an atheist long before that ever happened. I wasn't engaged in any kind of activism when I was with my husband, and we were both atheists.
Right. Sorry, my rum's going down hard tonight.
Did you see Dan's new drinking game in the comments?
Yes, I did see Dan's new drinking game in the comments.
I love it. We have light up coasters that are like really cool. So one of our listeners suggested that they take a drink every time we light our coasters up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in my own journey, I didn't become any kind of outspoken about my beliefs until kind of very recently. Like, it was, again, like for me, it was just not really part of my identity. It was just, it wasn't necessary. I didn't see the need to even bring it up. And then I saw all of these, for me, it wasn't necessarily like personal stories. It was, I started seeing all of these laws that were trying to be passed. And I saw the effects that religious thinking was having on the LGBT community. So, I mean, I guess it was kind of, personal story led. But, I just started to see, like, gosh, I'm in this new community now where I have to be I have to be out. I have to be outspoken about being trans because that's, it's obvious to anyone who meets me. And so I've made that a focal part of my existence. And there happens to be this segment in our society who constantly tries to stomp down our rights and take away our voice and make us an other. And guess who that is every single time? So then I had to become, a bit more vocal about, like, look, keep your God in your heart and your head and your church and leave us the hell alone.
Right.
So what inspires you to be an activist today? What drives you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I just met more and more people who were having such a difficult time. So people not able to be authentic or genuine about who they were because they were frightened of losing family and friends, or losing support in their community. People feeling like they were just unrepresented and unconnected and powerless. And I guess, as I do a lot of volunteer work, volunteering's always been very important to me. It's always been part of my life. And so when you're out in the faith-biased organization network, you see a lot of discrimination against people of non-faith. And it's not that it's outright discrimination. It's that the non-faith identities are not even recognized or considered valuable.
Yeah.
So just, wanting to make sure that people can feel safe volunteering, feel safe donating to a charity and knowing that their money is going to be used to help people, and especially making sure that we don't have people who are not able to seek help when they need it. So if there's for example, if there's someone who's experiencing domestic violence and they've been to one of the shelter's events and they know this is a very religious place, they might hesitate that one crucial minute leaving a situation and end up getting hurt or killed because they didn't want to face that kind of discrimination.
Yeah.
And that's not acceptable.
And we see that far more often than we should.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Well, you think about like other things that people who are have left faith are dealing with. Having to be in the closet. Or pretending to be something you're not in order to access services. It's just
absolutely
ridiculous.
There was a time when I was doing outreach at a couple of different festivals for humanism, and so my table has information on it on volunteerism and good without God messaging, and of course we're connected to other organizations in Central Florida, and a woman came up to the table and she just started to cry because she didn't know there was a support network out there, and it just floored her that there were people, there was a community that she could get involved in.
Well, let's transition into that conversation then and talk about community.
Okay.
That's, it's one of those things where when people leave faith, there's often not a real good kind of soft landing pad for them. When we talk about things that, what do you get from your faith? What do you get from your church experience? It's a lot of it is just community. It's being with other people who are, at least on one question, like-minded, that have similar views about things, that you can hang out with once or twice a week and, build these relationships. And then, I think a lot of people stay going to church, particularly if they're going like with a family member, like with other family or something. Yeah. But a lot of people I think stay for the community. Like that's a thing that you don't want to lose, and it's a big loss when it happens. So I think
there are a lot of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
This is actually one of the most frequently asked questions that I get when we do workshops here at UCF on interworld view inclusion and on humanism. So as the non-faith community continues to grow in number and diversity, there are all these support organizations that are springing up around the world to serve that demographic. And they're often using some of the same language that churches use, right? So you're going to see humanist fellowships and free thought community and secular assembly and atheist church. So people wonder, what the heck does that mean? What do they do, right? Do they eat babies? And so we have this great conversation about what are the non-religious aspects of being part of a church community. And there's this huge, rich list of, just that shared values community, making friends, having people to date that share your values, finding purpose, values guidance, friendship and fellowship, activities, volunteerism, positive habits, keeping us out of trouble, a safe place. I could go on and on. But it really is important, that community piece. And if you have someone, for example, someone who grew up Catholic, and I'll use that because I know it, and they've been going to church their whole life before they were born, their whole family is Catholic, and their friends and their children and their spouse, and one day along their faith journey, they realize they don't believe in that God anymore. Then what are they going to do? They have to make a decision. Am I going to leave this community that's such an integral part of my life? And if I do decide to stay, I have to make another decision. Am I going to be out?
Yeah.
So it's very complicated.
Absolutely. And, I'll speak from my experience here. And one of the things that, as I get into my own community building, that I want to make sure, one of my focuses, I guess. So anyone who's listened to SarahTalk for more than a few episodes has probably heard me complain about this in one form or another, more often about the queer community. But the same concern applies to secular community as well, and that is, my trouble is in finding community specifically in non-urban settings, non-city. So this is certainly true of the queer community in Central Florida, right? We basically live between Orlando and Tampa, and a little bit closer to Orlando. But pretty much all of the existing community that's out there are in Orlando, and not just in Orlando, but like downtown Orlando. And, I deal with tons of anxiety. Going into the city is not an easy thing for me. Earlier this month, I got lost going to a new therapist office in Lakeland, which is not a big city. I wouldn't classify that as a big city. And I had to pull into a grocery store and have like an anxiety attack and get my shit together. And okay, I'm gonna find this place. So going to new places is difficult for me. And I have kids and I work weird hours. So when I go looking for community, either queer or atheist, it's almost always like, ugh, here we go. We got to go to Orlando again. And I just can't. I just can't. It's just not really convenient for me to go to downtown, either downtown, Northeast Orlando, or Tampa. Like, none of that is convenient. And that's whether it's going to the center or volunteering with Central Florida Free Thought community. So from that, two thoughts. One, how do we make community more convenient for more people in those areas too, when it comes to location specifically? Like, I realize a lot of it is about numbers, but I think we're really missing out on some of our core audiences by doing that. Queer people and atheists in more rural settings may be the most in need community, the most in need of community people that exist. I think about my small hometown. It's like 1,300 people, 9 churches. There's no secular community. There's no GSA. The nearest major city is a 45-minute drive, unless it's winter and the snowplows haven't run, and then it's longer. So, like, how do we reach these people in rural areas better, or maybe help them kind of create their own community?
That's a great question, Sarah.
What do we do?
So I'm thinking, I don't know what the answer is to that. I think that's always a challenge, whether it's any kind of service that needs to be brought out to a rural area. There's always a challenge. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, I see, and maybe it's because I've lived it and still kind of experience it, but, it's that because I've lived in a super rural area where those things don't exist, that feeling of helplessness and being alone and not having anyone to reach out to, when that manifested itself in my transition, thank God for the internet, right? Pun intended. Because until the internet, trans people were just jokes on the Jerry Springer show, and finding, these old bulletin boards back in the day when the internet was new, connected me to people that were like-minded, and I wasn't alone. I wasn't weird, and I wasn't different. So I think, now it's just, in society in general, we've kind of moved away from the let's get together, right? Everybody likes to make fun of the computer generations, that everybody spends all their time online, and that's great. But I think we also need to work on, maybe it's let me see. Let me put this in farming terms. Maybe it's like, no, but listen, maybe it's like a co-op, right? Maybe it's, because again, you think about some of these small rural communities, right? You may have 4 or 5 people total who would identify with this movement initiative label, and be willing to let's get together for brunch on Sunday. And they may not all have the same times available, right? We bump into that problem all the time working with people. Yeah. We worked at Disney. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's, smaller groups in a bunch of different rural communities that come together. Maybe you travel from one. Yeah. Okay, well, this week we'll get together in this city, in this town, and next month we'll get together in this. I don't know. And I've been brainstorming this for a while.
Well, the Central Florida Free Thought community is doing that now. So they have this thing called the Free Thought Cafe, and I don't know a lot about it because I haven't been involved in it, but basically they have people in different areas who host coffees in their area, and they post that on their website, and people go and join.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that since I've been following.
Yeah, so maybe you could think about connecting with David and Jocelyn and see if you can set up a Free Thought Cafe in your area.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So when I first reached out to them, they hadn't started that yet. So I'll have to follow back up with them.
Yeah.
Well, and I've recently started getting involved with. We're going to try to launch a Polk County chapter of the T Network, because again, that's a group that serves trans people in pretty much Orlando, and when they get together, it's usually in Orlando, and I never get to go because life, and even in our initial conversations, we're all still looking at Lakeland as the meeting point, the center point, because it's kind of the largest city in the county, I guess, and even that, it's on the western edge of the county, and so already I wonder, if you live in Frostproof, that's nearly an hour drive.
Yeah,
it's a 40-minute drive from where we live, and I just want to make sure that it's as I'm building this thing and as I'm looking at, other avenues and ways to do things, I just want to make sure it's accessible, That's really it.
Yeah, and then the other piece is getting the word out, because if you do have something like a Free Thought Cafe for the 4 people in your area who might identify as atheists or other atheistic identities,
got to get them.
Those 4 people may not. Right. How do you connect with them? How do you find them? How do they find you?
Yep.
And even if you do find them, are they comfortable coming to something that essentially outs them?
Yeah. Definitely. All right, so we're coming close on our time here. I'd like to wrap up with, I want to learn more about what you do in your role with UCF. And, well, let's start with that. Let's start with UCF. Talk about some of the work that you're doing there at the college?
Well, all right. Let's see, where to start. Well, we have a religion and non-religion services website here, which is kind of an inter-worldview resource, which is a collaboration between Humanist and Secular Services, which is the volunteer work I do here, and Campus Faiths and Ministries, which is the interfaith network here. For Humanist and Secular Services, we do workshops through the university's diversity program, where we talk about inter-worldview respect and inclusion. And we also do another one that's specifically on humanism and other atheistic identities to talk about the experience of living without God. We host a humanist peer support and discussion group. We're in the process of trying to put together a humanist faculty and staff association. We do the Secular Safe Zone Ally Network here, which is very similar to the LGBTQ plus safe zone we have. We have a very active Secular Student Alliance at UCF. Does that kind of help give you an idea of some of what we've got going on?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a
Sounds
lot.
like you're keeping busy over there.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, over the years, I have been trying to understand the needs of our campus community and, especially underrepresented faith minorities and the non-faith demographic. And I've learned about people who are just experiencing all kinds of challenges here with discrimination, bullying, marginalization, proselytization. And so I have, worked with others here at the university to look into that. And on October 26th of last year, the Board of Trustees passed new language in our non-discrimination policy for various identities, but they included non-religion as one of the protected classes.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, I think we are the first university in the nation to do that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. And then you founded Be Orlando. Talk about that organization. What is Be Orlando, and what are you doing with that for the community? How can people get involved?
Well, Be Orlando is basically just a volunteer organization. So we go out and we do volunteer work in the community. But then it has another layer because we want to provide intentional opportunities for the secular community to volunteer together. And we also want to overcome stereotypes about non-theistic people by serving visibly and by doing advocacy and outreach. So we do a combination of all kinds of different things where we go to festivals and we do tabling to talk about the good without God messaging. But we also have people who are just part of our organization because they like to volunteer with us. And I think, having religious members, when we're serving together, we build bridges across our differences, and I think that's really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there any other projects you'd like to talk about, or anything that we've missed?
No, the only thing I would highlight that I am super excited about is we have on the 15th of March something called the Secular Advocacy Dinner. It's gonna be at UCF, and we're gonna talk about all of the things that we've done here at UCF. We have some very special guests coming to join us from the national and local faith and secular communities. So if anybody's interested in that, they could certainly email me for more information.
Awesome. We can put your email address on the show notes if you're copacetic to that. And of course we'll put links to Be Orlando and anything else that you want us to drive people towards. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much.
My pleasure. T, thank you for joining us tonight to talk about humanism and to share your journey. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for all that you do. You really make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Alrighty, bye-bye. All right, that was good.
Yeah.
That was great. So there you go. Be humanists, everybody. Go out there and do great things because it's the right thing to do.
If you don't do it, nobody can do it.
Right. So I changed my mind.
Okay.
I am going to go through the other thing that I'd prepared for the night.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Initially, I was going to like skip it and just call it a day right here.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know. I'll mix in a break later. I was going to kick it to a break, but if y'all would just give me a minute to refill my cup.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see if it lights up for you, Dan.
You're out of control.
What? This is my third.
Nah.
Oh, I'm out of rum.
I brought you a brand new bottle today.
I know.
Talking about?
I meant this bottle's in.
Yeah, well,
That's all that I meant.
You should have brought the other one in then. What happened to it?
It's out in the kitchen.
Oh, okay. Oh man.
Well, so that was really good. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing from T. One of the things that we kind of talked about ahead of time was that, it lit up. One of the things that we talked about ahead of time was that she's kind of self-described herself as like she doesn't pay attention to the news. Like she doesn't watch all of those things that are going on necessarily. That, her work is more towards, interacting with the people that she can interact with. It's a very on the boots on the ground, grassroots sort of thing in the community.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I think you need those different ranks in the, in the organization, that some people are going to be good with legal issues and that they're going to stay on top of those. And some people are going to be good at just building the community and, creating spaces for people to have these conversations.
Right.
So anyway, I think that's great.
I do too.
Okay. Now, last week, so again, I wasn't going to do this. Last week, we spent considerable time talking about the shooting in Parkland, Florida, right? So again, I don't really want to do that, but there are a couple of things that have come up that I wanted to get into a little bit more. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, kind of alluded to this, but we'll talk about it in a little more depth. In the days after the shooting, the Florida House refused to even take up debate on a bill from Carlos Guillermo Smith that sought to ban assault rifles, large magazines, bump stocks, that sort of thing. And you know what they did instead? They passed a bill declaring porn a public health risk, and another bill that would require schools to display "In God We Trust" on school grounds.
Because that'll keep the guys out.
Right? I just, my head is swollen with...
I forget what comedian it was, but one of the comedians was like, they're after the teenagers. They've cut it out for the teenagers. They won't protect them in their schools. And they're taking away their porn.
Right? Yeah. Right. I just...
It's mind-boggling, really, because it's not like it's difficult to look at the big picture and understand that something needs to be done.
Right.
Something.
Right.
You don't have to pass the bill, but to just not even talk about it while the victims and the survivors and the families of children that had been murdered were sitting right in front of you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If this doesn't prove to everyone that Republican politicians are the lowest of the low when it comes to life forms and scumbags, I don't know what else. What more proof do you require?
This video, though, and I wish I had had the time to prep the show today better, but maybe I'll find it and put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Carlos laid into this. They were talking about this. The guy that that I can't remember his name. The guy that put forth the porn bill.
I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, and Carlos was like, "So, has anyone ever been? I don't know." Hospitalized or put in a wheelchair, or
Right.
like if we're talking about porn being a health concern, then show to me the evidence where it has caused health problems.
And we're not talking about one guy who got something stuck somewhere.
Where's Brandon when you need him?
Like, I want statistics. I want double-blind studies. I want data. One guy that has some emergency room visit
because you think it's icky.
Right.
And your Bible tells you it's bad, and so, no. Interestingly enough, in the most red of red states, Pornhub releases their statistics every once in a while, and it's like, look, here's all these people in the reddest of red states looking at, and not just looking at lots and lots of porn, looking at the wildest of the extreme of the weird stuff.
Yeah.
They're into some kink, which is fine. But then don't try to legislate it away. If you like it, why are you I don't understand that.
I don't know. Are they like? Do they think that the more access people have to porn, the less they will be able to access? Like, do they not understand how the internet works?
Right. If I take your porn away, I get double the porn. That's how that works.
Or is there a greater scheme underneath here? Does this have something to do with net neutrality?
Oh God. So yes, the debate about what we need to do about the problem rages on, like it always does. But the difference this time, again, is these kids are not taking no for an answer. Students across the country staged a walkout in solidarity with the Parkland students, and to protest the inaction from our lawmakers, they descended upon the Florida Capitol and in D.C. in protest, which is just amazing to watch. And they aren't backing down. And on the right, adults are scoffing that children shouldn't be activists. They are too young to know what they're talking about or how to solve these problems, even though they were literally in a school shooting themselves. Like, just a few days ago, in a school, hiding in the closet, running for their lives. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Watching their friends die in front of them.
Right.
And I gotta tell you, anybody who says that this movement isn't going anywhere and these kids don't have the strength to drive it, fuck y'all. They were on Ellen. They're going places.
Some people even claimed, people not quite as far out as Alex Jones, were claiming that these kids were paid actors.
Right. Crisis actors. Yeah. Bullshit.
And the one kid, the kid that was, I wish I had time to write these things down, but the kid that was like, ask anyone who saw any of the things that I ever did in our theater productions. No one's paying me to act.
It was Fiddler on the Roof.
So good.
If anybody saw the Fiddler on the Roof that our school produced.
Yes, nobody's paying me to act. It was so good. God, these kids are great.
Well, and this isn't your like normal school either. This is a prestigious school and they have very accelerated programs and these kids are smart. So yeah, it's not like you're going into like the worst rated school in Florida and pulling kids out of that school. You're going to a really good school where there's generally smart students.
Dan says, I'm an Arizonan and I'm usually embarrassed to be from this state. This past week, Florida has surpassed Arizona's embarrassment factor. I would have put Florida way higher than...
Dan, I am a native Floridian, and I have had my moments of shame, but I'm going to tell you what.
Do you want me to bleep that? I can't believe you just said that out loud.
I've been ashamed, but this is probably like... I was trying to figure out a way that I could get my birth certificate redacted. That's how ashamed I am of my state right now. And I've never been this ashamed.
Okay.
Ridiculous.
So there's one story out of this that I wanted to share this week. You know, in the New Testament, Jesus taught us how we should pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And bless our rifles, as they, not God, protect us.
You're quite done.
That's how it went, right? Is that how you remember it?
No.
Well, a church...
But go on.
A church in northeastern Pennsylvania is inviting worshipers to bring their assault weapons, including AR-15 style rifles, to a blessing ceremony.
I'm going to go get my gun blessed. Then anybody I kill will go to heaven. I don't know how they talk in Pennsylvania. I'm just thinking of a gun walking into a church. The only place that happens is Texas. So I'm thinking maybe Pennsylvania is having a time warp or something, and they think that they are Texas. No?
No.
Okay, go on.
Took everything I had not to break into time warp. Let's do. Okay, I'll
Stop it. I used the wrong word. Obviously, I didn't mean time warp. I meant like something else, but their transporters have malfunctioned.
Right. Yes. So you're hearing this right. Apparently, this was scheduled before the melee in South Florida happened. But what timing, right?
That makes it so much better.
Sanctuary Church and Rod of Iron Ministries are one and the same, and are run by the Moon family of South Korea. A church leader was interviewed by WNEP who said, "This will be a big thing for us. It's a new stage for us because it incorporates the rod of iron as it is in Revelations. Revelations talks about the returning Christ ruling with the rod of iron."
Are they saying Revelations or are you saying Revelations?
No, this was in their quote.
Because it's Revelation.
I know.
Go on.
Revelations talks about the returning Christ ruling with the rod of iron. He said the AR-15 is the rod of iron. So much for that love thy neighbor hippie Jesus stuff, huh?
Hold on, I'm looking for
I'm
a
sorry,
scripture.
I should have given you...
You should have, then I would have had the scripture on point, but instead, now I'm sitting here trying to look at... Keep going.
I don't have a lot left. You need to look fast.
Oh.
You need to... You know what you need? You need to download their Bible app on your phone, on your electronic gadget, and you can look this stuff up with keywords.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Moon family also happens to own Car, I assume it's pronounced K-A-H-R, Car Arms, which is a gun maker in the state. No conflict of interest there. Police have been asking questions about the event. Area residents are uneasy because there's apparently an elementary school near this church. And the church says they're expecting around 600 AR-15 toting worshipers.
That's insane. What the hell?
Your time's winding down.
I'm sorry. Well, I had it. Now I can't find this freaking...
We can come back to it next week. You can
there
take
it is. Okay.
the proper time to research, and we can come back to
Well,
it.
I just want to double check something here. And they will... Yeah. Okay. Now, I know this doesn't talk about guns, but it does talk about the weapon of the times.
Before you read this, can I just point out how quickly you got to... Like, you still got it. Like, I flip right to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, there's a scripture in Isaiah that talks about the times of whatever, blah, 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 crap. And it says, and he will certainly render judgment among the nations and set matters straight respecting many peoples. This is talking about the time of the end, which supposedly we're in, if you ask any religious zealot.
Mm.
And they will have to beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning shears. It goes on, but that did not sound to me like they were going to be blessing the weapons of the churchgoers. So it sounded like they were going to be melting these weapons down and turning them to things that were useful.
Oh, that's what I suggested.
Right.
I suggested we turn in all our guns, melt them down for parts that we can give to Elon Musk to build more rockets with.
Right. Anything really. Can you make solar panels out of
The metal framing,
The metal
I'm sure.
framing,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can reuse the metal.
So I want to know what version of the Bible these people are reading, and I want to know where in the Bible it tells them they should be blessing any kind of weapon.
I will give you
because I don't remember that.
in the article I read it had
Did it have one?
yeah
There.
it had the Revelation
Right, but
chapter verse. But I'll get that to you. We can come back to it.
okay.
But here's my thing, right? How can God command, "Thou shalt not kill," But then the church is like, bring your peace down and we'll bless it. Bring down your killing machine.
Right.
Bring down your killing machine and we'll bless it.
Murder.
And we'll bless it. I just don't get it at all.
No, it makes absolutely zero sense. We don't live in a logical world anymore.
No. This is the darkest of all possible timelines. We're in the alternate universe.
So sad.
Which means we all have to grow goatees, I think.
Ew. Gross.
Yeah, that's old Star Trek. It's not like that anymore.
I mean, I gave up shaving my legs a long time ago, so that's as close as I'll get. But
next week is episode 100. We should have like a sound cue for I don't know, something, bells and whistles and air horns. No?
For what?
When we say episode 100.
Oh, okay. We're not going to say it that often. Like literally it'll be next week, and we're probably going to say it like maybe once or twice.
If I even remember to do that.
If you even...
I don't think I ever said that this was episode 99.
Probably
I don't think
not.
I ever mentioned it.
It's on the sign. Who cares?
There you go. So next week.
Yes, Hillbilly Bible Studies.
Yes, exactly. So next week, Beth Wheatley, who is an Emmy-nominated producer and a friend of the show. Beth is the producer behind Tora Hyman, who appeared on the show as well. She was just very like, I don't want to be on the camera. I don't want to be this. I'm not the performer. I'm the producer. I get back here. No microphones, no cameras, please. But she is working with her girlfriend to create a new movie, a new film that explores a personal Me Too story. And so we've shared the link in the Facebook group. If you're not in the Facebook group, head to SarahTalk.com and click the link for Facebook group.
And shame on you. No, I'm just kidding.
Right? Yeah, why
are you
haven't you joined
for?
us yet? That's where the good conversations happen. But anyway, so they're currently like crowdfunding, Kickstartering the production costs of the film that they're working on. So they're going to come join us in studio, and we'll talk more about what they're working on and maybe probably the broader Me Too movement, just kind of in general. It's also Shave Becca's Hair.
I cannot wait. We should just do it right now. Kidding.
I don't have the stuff ready.
I know. Oh, well. No, I'm so looking forward to having anything to bother me for a while.
Yeah.
It's going to be nice. Freedom.
So, I mean, I guess we can talk about this next week, but are we thinking like a 2 or a 1 or a nothing?
I'm like Emma Gonzalez. Do it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's my new hero anyway. So.
Right?
And I just want to say, I decided to shave my head before she became a movement. So I'm not copying her.
That's great.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. So let's, I'm ready to go back to bed.
Tell me about it.
It's been such a long day.
Oh, and Sarah, ready to go back to bed. Guess who kept me up all night watching curling? Fucking 1 o'clock in the morning, I roll over and she's awake.
Did
with
you
2
see
screens? Glass eyes.
But did you see the USA men's curling team
drooling over the curling team?
Kicked ass.
That's nice. I didn't think that was allowed.
So good. It was so great.
I said we should rename it to Ice Rocky.
I don't know who you are.
I don't know who you are either. So when was the last Winter Olympics? Like what
4
year
years
was
ago.
that? It was 4 years ago? Because I don't remember you being all into curling 4
No,
years
I wasn't.
ago.
I wasn't. No, this is a newfound thing.
Ugh.
Is that okay? Is that a problem? What's wrong with that?
I don't know. Maybe.
Should I be worried?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, hold on. It depends on how fast I can find a new something to be interested in. And
Excuse me?
Hey, at least I didn't say someone.
That's fair.
Oh man.
But curling, really.
Yeah,
Curling
yeah.
is awesome.
So I didn't get any
So
sleep
good.
because that's the time that she normally is awake. So I had to put up with her watching curling. At least she had her headphones on.
Yeah.
Thanks for some consideration.
You're welcome.
Bitch.
So good though. And I'm dealing with sciatic pain
Yeah.
today, which like really dashes my hopes of becoming a
Yeah, you get
curler.
down in that lunge, forget
oh
it.
man. That's so I've been talking with
Yeah, Dan, I know. It's just been like what? Okay, so I used to really be into the Olympics and sports. Believe it or not, I watch the Summer Olympics, I watch the Winter Olympics, I watch the Olympics all the time.
mm-hmm.
And then I moved out of my house and didn't like have time for that because I was trying to work and I was
Mm-hmm.
not a kid anymore. And then we got together and then we had a kid and then we turned the cable off because we were trying to save money. And
That was a big part of
and then never turned it back on.
Yeah.
So it's not like I can just turn the TV on and watch the Olympics like I could when I was a kid and lived at home. So I know it's every 4 years, but sometimes I forget that.
you've lost track of time too.
But yeah, well, but anyway, whatever.
I had a comment from one of our listeners off the chat, Barbara, who said, let's talk about how the Cheeto Bandito still wants his motherfucking parade that could cost taxpayers upwards of $50 million. When isn't it obvious how many people or children could be saved if that money were put to good use?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I could come up with 50 reasons, 50 better things to use $50 million
Right?
on.
Well, if you're not going to do the
And
gun
more
thing,
porn is on the top of that list.
if you're not going to do the gun thing, you need to do that thing. The schools. Did you see the video of the school in Indiana that has like smoke cannons and there's cameras everywhere? It's monitored by the police station. The teachers
No.
all have a button. There's a red line on the floor where the students can get behind that red line and nobody can see through the door where they are. And like the police can see where an active shooter is and release smoke cannons on them.
Wow.
And basically, like it's a really high tech school.
Right.
And spend that money on those schools and get all. If you're not going to change your gun laws, at least
Right.
protect the schools. It sucks that you have to think that way, but
Let's push this back to next week because Dan's married to a Canadian.
oh,
Curling is huge in our
wait,
house.
no, back up, Eric. Thank you. You're my people. We've been fighting about this since the freaking Olympics started. I don't get it. It shouldn't be a sport. I think like disc golf is more entertaining than curling.
He also says you will have to have a show explaining that sport.
You can have that
next
show.
week. On,
No, I will not be here.
next week on the Curl Pod.
I will not be here. I will go see Michael and he will shave my head. And sorry, y'all, Sarah, I'm going to go find you a pen.
Whatever. One of these days we're gonna have to tell that story.
I know.
People get it. It's the inside joke.
I'm going to find a clip so we can put it in the show notes. So
Yes. Dan, I'll be in touch. So Orlando has a curling league, a curling club.
God.
And I want to do this so bad. I want to go. They do a learn to curl series. I want to do it.
And here's the thing. I would totally be supportive of that if I thought you wouldn't die trying.
You're such a bitch.
You,
I'm fine.
You no. No.
Not today.
Okay, people.
Today I'm not fine.
We took the kids to Legoland last weekend.
Uh-huh.
And Sarah was putting the baby in the stroller. So I don't even remember what it was.
That's true.
The baby is
I was probably just walking.
less than 40 pounds. How heavy are those stones?
No, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I didn't think so. So the baby is less than 40 pounds, and she's putting the baby in the stroller and comes like to stand up and goes, oh, my back is out. So, and that was just standing up. That wasn't like lunging down on the ground to get a good viewpoint of where the rock is supposed to go. Whatever that means. Anyway, I'm just thinking about long term here.
Okay, I get it. Listen, all I'm asking is to go to a class and learn and see how it goes.
How about like
Okay.
virtual reality?
No. I just want to see how it goes.
How about like an Apple app?
I'm not saying I'm going to be an Olympian. I'm not going to be professional.
That boat has sailed. I don't even think you meet the maximum age.
Yeah, right. I'm not saying I want to like curl competitively. I want to learn to play the game. That's it.
Okay, how about this? How about I just take you down to the Senior Citizen Center and you can learn shuffleboard because it's basically the same thing. Hey. And I'm the bitch. You cut my microphone because I'm saying something that isn't in your echo chamber.
It's not the same thing. Damn it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, join us. You need to get off of here.
No.
What?
Dan says Sarah would be the only American amateur curler suspected of doping.
I'm going to change that. Confirmed, Dan. Confirmed doping.
Man.
All right, let's close this thing out.
This was good. I needed this.
Yeah. We want to thank our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/SarahTalk. They are part-time patron Russell, Andrea, the Wayward Willis Podcast, Mandy, Josie, Harry, Jeremy, Heather, Stacy, Megan, Morgan, and AJ. Thank you all so much for throwing your money at what we do. We really appreciate that. Helps us do all of these things. Go to SarahTalk.com for everything related to the show. And we'll see you next week for episode 100.
Woohoo!
This is Sarah Talk.
Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/SarahTalk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@sarahtalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, facebook.com/SarahTalkRadio and on Twitter @SarahTalkRadio. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.